Welcome back to another edition of the Talking National League podcast. Episode 13 is tonight. Maybe unlucky 13 for Scunthorpe United, or perhaps Chesterfield, with the increasing rumours of Kabongo Tishamanga leaving the club to join Birmingham City. Them rumours are increasing as we speak over at Chesterfield. I'm delighted to be joined by Tom Williams from Analyst Bar. We are also later going to be joined by Toby from Scunthorpe United to be talking about their troubles and the recent appointment of their new manager. We are later finally going to be joined by Paul Franklin from Stonecast to talk about the secret behind their success to the start of their season in the National League. So firstly, Tom, a lot's happened this week. We've had finding out that Dorking Wanderers are included in Take On Me, the song. We've also had the news that streaming is going to be, there's rumours surrounding streaming. There's also the next two episodes of the Wrexham documentary are now out. I think the first thing that we are going to start with, though, is the game week review. So what were your take on the previous game week?
I thought it was a really interesting game week. From my point of view as a Notts fan, it was a really good, positive game week. 2 wins out of 2, and Luke Williams got manager of the week this week. So we can't really complain with our results. We've been absolutely fantastic. And a few sides sort of set themselves apart as teams to beat this season. Obviously, Wrexham did really well, and so did Chesterfield. Chesterfield came from behind, obviously, on Monday. I think it was Monday, wasn't it? They were 1-0 down.
Yeah, it was Monday.
They did. I mean, they did really well as well. They look like a side that are absolutely flying, with or without Kabongo. So I thought it was an interesting game week. Chesterfield Barnet was on Saturday, wasn't it? And that was a big.
That was Friday, yeah.
Friday, sorry,
yeah.
The previous, so many games, so many days. The Friday was a big eye opener as to the quality of those two teams. I think Chesterfield maybe the team to beat early on, but Notts did extremely well, beating Solihull as well. So a lot of big teams have played each other. And I think there's another good round of games this week. But Dagenham as well came back from their disappointment the weekend. So it's been a mixed result for quite a few sides. But as I said, Chesterfield, Notts, Wrexham sort of pulling away a bit. And obviously for yourselves,
that sort of gap seems to be happening, doesn't it, now? Although it's quite early on in the season, it does sort of feel like that. For anyone that is watching, please don't forget to drop us a like and subscribe if you haven't already. That would be much appreciated. We haven't actually mentioned Halifax Town then. A 4-1 defeat against Notts County, which in my opinion was quite flattering from your perspective. A few other Notts fans may disagree here in the chat. I've noticed we do have one or two already, but we also got our first win against Scunthorpe United. That was a crucial win from our perspective. I think it was you who mentioned whoever lost that game, the manager's job's going to be under scrutiny, and we sort of saw that, didn't we, with Keith Hill being sacked by Scunthorpe. What were your takes then on Halifax over the games the past week?
As you said, I think we were good value for the win, but I thought you had positive signs. I mean, Slocum made that huge save at 1-0, which could have completely changed the game. And I think pre-game you were you're not the biggest fan of Gilmore, but he had a pretty decent game. His both volleys looked pretty good. I think for Halifax, your main issue is just striker Manny. I'm not going to attempt to say his last name, but.
I'll do it. Manny Disaruwe. I think it is. I was speaking to some Grimsby fans, and that's apparently how you pronounce it.
There you are. That's he is struggling. I'm not sure he's really the right fit. He's I know he had a chance against Notts at the near post, but he never really threatened. And obviously, I don't know how. I've not watched the full highlights, so I've seen the goals for the Scunthorpe game. But then if he really threatened against Scunthorpe. But I think the fact that you've finally got on the scoreboard, points and goals wise, I think it's massive positive. I think Millington needs time. There's always going to be a tough start for you after losing all the players and the manager. So, I think it's been a very positive game week. You've scored your first goal, and you did lose 4-1 to Notts, but it wasn't a terrible performance. And then you've got your first points. I know Scunthorpe were really in trouble, but your first 3 points this season. So I think it's a really good weekend for Halifax, to be honest.
Yeah, I see a win's a win in my opinion, against Scunthorpe. Yes, they are struggling. Yes, they're near the bottom of the league. But, when you're in that sort of position where you're winless, you've only scored the one goal against Notts County, you're sort of thinking we just need to get a win. I don't care how we do it. And I think that's a prime example of that, going somewhere like Scunthorpe, which I were heading into that game thinking it's still not going to be an easy place to go. They've got a good calibre of players, which has sort of been proven. And a lot of people, even Halifax fans, have said you're not going to get an easier 3 points in that this season. I wasn't actually too disappointed with Scunthorpe as a team, and I think a lot of even Scunthorpe fans will probably, laugh at that and what I've said. But you could sort of see there was a number of players in that squad that had quality and Football League quality. In fact, in my opinion, I think Scunthorpe, when this new manager comes in, which he has done now, if it does kick on, I'm sure they can guide away themselves from safety. I think my prediction, and I'm not flattering myself here, but my prediction at the start of the season will look better come the end of the season where their final placement will be, because I think we're sort of seeing that sort of turnover, that sort of rebuild, which we sort of saw with Southend in the previous campaign, what's happening with Scunthorpe. We've had a few people coming in the chat. Ian Birchall, Notts fan. Are we going to talk about a Saturday game, Luke? We've already done that, Ian, so we won't talk about that again now. Zach, who's a Torquay fan, said, evening everyone, welcome to the stream. Anyone else that wants to get involved in the live chat, give your opinions, please feel free to do so. So the next topic then that I'd quickly like to just put a bit of a note on is obviously there's a lot of rumours on streaming services at this moment in time. I think Ryan Reynolds is wanting to get streaming for Wrexham games, for long distance away games, and for fans that are overseas. For example, Wrexham, they're getting a lot of fans now from overseas because of the documentary. And I think it's sort of mixed within the National League. I don't know what your take is on it, Tom. I'm a bit split, to be honest. I'm not that bothered, but I'm a bit split in my opinion. I think it's the same with a lot of people. I think it's good that Ryan Reynolds has sort of got involved with those people who are all for it, because he's such a big name. Vanarama, who are obviously the sponsors, have also stepped in and said they're going to try have conversations with the National League themselves. And I think there's a meeting actually meant to be on the 12th of September. But what's your take on it, Tom, and streaming and all these rumours and speculation surrounding it?
Yeah, it's a tough topic because there's obviously a lot of different opinions on it. But I think that it's from Reynolds' point of view, I understand why he's doing it. But to be honest, I think the motivations are perhaps a little selfish, because Wrexham are set up to be able to stream games, but you've got to think the National League is not just our league; it's North and South as well. So there's 72 teams, and some of their some of those sides don't even put out highlights packages. So I don't know how they're going to stream a full game. And you've also got to think there's bigger issues, I think, in the National League than being able to stream Wrexham's game to abroad. I think the 3 up, 3 down discussion needs to be able for that. And I think as well, if we're going to talk about streaming, the fact that the clubs can't release the highlights till 10 p.m. the next day, it kills a lot of the content that people can put out. My main content is my threads, and I can't put those out till 10 p.m. the next day, which is isn't great. And I also think that there's a reason that the kickoffs are 3 o'clock, and there's a reason why even the Premier League, not all the games are shown in the UK, is because the match day attendances would die out if every game. If you could stream any National League game, fans that are on the fence about going, especially away games, you're not going to go. You're just going to think, I can watch the game at home.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll sit and watch it. And the away support, the only away support you'll get then the diehards and people that enjoy away trips. So I understand the point of view from Wrexham. I've actually not watched the series yet. I'm going to watch it.
I'm going to do it when the whole series is out, and then I'll just probably subscribe
a
one-off payment, because I'm not paying all that money just to watch a Wrexham documentary, although I am interested in watching it. But I think, like you mentioned, on streaming, it would affect away attendances, whatever people say. I know people say, League 2, it doesn't affect away attendances. It's a little bit different. You're in League 2, you're in a better position. The National League, I don't think it affects Wrexham's attendances, especially not at home. They're going to be getting 8,000, 9,000, probably the same with sides like Notts. I don't actually think it generally change home attendances. It's more the away attendances. For example, Halifax going to Torquay on a Tuesday night. You're not going to be taking many anyway, but it'd lower even much, and then that'll probably give a good example of someone to then laugh at someone else's support, and that's something that we don't particularly want to see. However, it would sort of be convenient for me personally if, let's say, we're playing Torquay on a Tuesday night. I'm not going to go to Torquay on a Tuesday night. I'll just watch it at home. So there's different sort of perspectives on that. I think it's a bit different. I'm sure the majority of Wrexham fans and probably even Notts fans would say, oh yeah, we want streaming, we want all this, we want away games streamed, and even Chesterfield, other sort of sides like that, Southend, your bigger clubs, will all be in favour of that. Someone's come in the chat now, a working fan, saying, evening all, congrats on the Sharemen's first win. Had the pleasure of seeing a Torquay get Davil Sal by the mighty Woking on Monday. Yeah, it's a bit of a derby, that. I don't particularly know if it is a derby as such, but I know Torquay fans like to think it is because there aren't too many two derbies down there for themselves. Just another topic that I'd like to quickly talk about then. Kabongo Tishimanga. A lot of highly rumours with him leaving the club. I think a lot of people saying it's a deal done. He's going to go to Birmingham City at 750k apparently is the speculation on the rumour and the price tag that Chesterfield have put on him. What are your thoughts on
that? Yeah, I'll just quickly check if there's any updates. I've not seen any. I think if it does go through, it's a good move for Birmingham. I think they're getting a really good striker. Whether he can play in the Championship, I don't know. It's a big step up. And as well, people. There's got a lot of angles to come at it from. From Kabongo Shimanga's point of view, he's a massive step up for him. I mean, he's had a fantastic rise since he left Boreham Wood, and I thought he'd do well last season, but I didn't think he'd hit the ground running as well as he did. Like, it's unbelievable. And obviously, he's back already, scored a couple of goals, and I think it's a massive step up for him in his career. Birmingham getting sort of a really good striker, and he 750k for a striker is not a lot, but then it's a lot for a striker internationally. So I can, see both sides there. Chesterfield as well. They actually look all right without him. Like, I'm not saying they're better, but they did. Yeah, they did look at the start of the season. They weren't playing badly when he wasn't in the team. And as well, I'm not saying this is the case, but he's only just got back from injury. People are saying he's got over the injury already, but I'd want to see 10, 15 games before, like full 90 minutes before you really assess it, because, yeah, he's hit the ground running so far, but 5 games in, if the injury then flares up again. So I think Chesterfield are perhaps making a good decision by selling, because there's no pressure on them as well to spend it. They're not getting $1 million. Say it goes 750 to £1 million, so they get that in. They've not got to spend that today. Because there's no deadline, they can spend a couple of weeks and find the right player. So.
Yeah, they're in a better. I think Chesterfield are in a better position now than they were last season when Tishimanga got injured. They've got more experienced players. They've got a better calibre of players. They've got other options on the forward line. Yes, I still think it'd be a big loss. It might be the difference between them winning the title, because you do know we've already seen that with Tishimanga returning, that he can score goals, and that he is going to start scoring goals again prolifically like he was potentially in the previous season. But you've got Asante, who seems to be back now. Let's just remember last season, he didn't come back until the second half of the season, and then he still wasn't fully fit. So this season, a full season for him, you've got a striker there that is going to score goals with players supplying him through with the likes of Dobra, Banks. The list goes on. Mandeville. You've also got other players as well, like Quigley as well, who's still there at the club at this moment in time. There's a lot of options for Chesterfield at this moment in time, I think. So, yeah, 750k, it's a lot of money at this level, and there's a lot you could do with that. But, would you be able to spend that sufficiently and bring in players surrounding the team that are going to be, match sort of the loss of Tishimanga? I'm not too sure. But, yeah, it would be a big loss, I do think. But, you can't really stand in the player's way. He's come back from injury. He's proven that he's still scoring goals, although he's probably not fully fit. He's only 75% back, in my opinion, at this moment in time. I think it is a good move for him personally. But, yeah, I think it'd be a bit sad from Chesterfield's perspective to see him go. But can't stand in the player's way.
I think they need another goal scorer, just because Quigley isn't really... He's played. I thought he played well against them, but he's not really been banging them in. And Asante, he picks up injuries here and there, like he's picking up like slight knocks. So I think they need another striker in, but Asante is fantastic and has proven he can do a lot of what Chimanga can do. So.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. Chesterfield top of the league at this moment in time by a point. It would be a big loss, like I keep mentioning, losing him. But I think it's just surprising how sudden it was. This time yesterday there were no rumours on Tishimanga leaving, and now it's sort of flying up, isn't it? I remember, I think it was last January when Chesterfield were near top of the league, and there were rumours about him leaving. I think might have even been Hearts that he was actually rumoured to in the Scottish League. Tishimanga was rumoured to. Yeah, there were a number of teams that were rumoured to him. For you personally, I'm sure you'd like to see him go, though, wouldn't you? Because it's sort of that loss as a Notts fan. Someone else that's going to be sort of competing with them. For you, wouldn't it, losing Tishimanga from the league?
Yeah, exactly. Like, obviously, you never want to see. When he got injured last year, that wasn't nice. Seeing him get injured, you never want to see a player get injured. If he is sold, it's good for the players, good advert for the league, and as it from a Notts point of view, it would be ideal. Although Chesterfield having all that money, I wouldn't be so good. I mean, I saw on Twitter today someone say that they should go for Langstaff if they sell him. I don't think we'd sell Langstaff, but I mean, if they did have sort of nearly £1 million to spend, could be quite dangerous because they've already brought in some good players. But then these good players have brought in, maybe they wouldn't need to spend much more. But yeah, it'd be good to see. Yeah, I mean, if a rival's usually the key striker, it'd be like if Wrexham lost Mullen or Palmer. Like it'd be good news. Any side really. So yeah, obviously it's not a bad thing from Notts' point of view, definitely.
Yeah. Finally, then, Tom, would you reconsider the position of the title child? Would you reconsider who you put top at this moment in time?
Well, when I came on to your thing, I said that I had Chesterfield third because I couldn't put them above Notts. That's why. But I genuinely probably thought Chesterfield second. And I mean, Chesterfield looked like a team to beat. Obviously, this transfer dealings. No, I still think Wrexham will win it. I still think Wrexham will do it. But I'm quietly confident that Notts could push them close. So could Chesterfield. And I think Solihull probably are the fourth best team. Barnet looked pretty good as well. So I think the few of the things I would change, I'd have Barnet in the playoffs.
Yeah, you put Barnet quite high up, didn't you?
I did have them quite high. I think I had them 9th or 10th.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I'd probably push them a bit higher. But I mean, they could end up finishing 9th, 10th. Wealdstone, I had mid-table. I think they'll drop off a bit. And I wish I'd stuck at Maidstone originally. Had them a lot higher, but again, I'd pushed them down. Probably should have stuck with them. But yeah, title-wise, I mean, I've still got to stick with Wrexham. Mullen and Palmer are both scoring now, and that is dangerous. And they've obviously got Hayden, who's a great player as well, and got quality all over the pitch. But Notts, I mean, we've looked really good. Against Solihull, we look, superb. So
yeah,
I'm quietly confident. But then again, I suppose ask me after Saturday because we've got Dagenham away, and that's a really tough game.
Yeah, even when they're out of form, Dagenham away is always a tough place to go, isn't it? I know. They beat Bromley as well, didn't they, at the weekend, I believe, too?
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. They still fall against Bromley. Bromley kept 4 clean sheets, so they're like a dangerous team even when they're not at the best. So, But yeah, no, I think the title race is still those 3 teams. Solihull will bounce back. They're still a very good side, Solihull. I was very worried about that game going Monday, sorry. And they still look at the side. We just did an absolute number on them. We just dominated them in every area, really. But I think you've seen all these post-match interview for that, but he that wasn't happy with his side at all. So I think they sort of played into hands a little bit. But no, I'd still say Wrexham favourites, unfortunately. But you never know.
Yeah, like I've previously mentioned we're going to be talking a lot about Scunthorpe with the new appointment of their manager. I'm pleased to be joined by Toby now, who's going to be joining the stream. Toby, firstly, give us the lowdown on Scunthorpe starts the season.
Well, in one word, terrible. I mean, we started off well. We beat Yeovil in the first game, but since then it's just gone from bad to worse. Like, every game we've lost. We've lost against 10-man Bromley. We surrendered a 3-goal lead at home against Solihull. And against Halifax, obviously, as you'll know, Luke, we were just comical that game. The second goal was just ridiculous. The defending, the overall competency of the players is just ridiculous. So after the initial sort of, I don't know, plus point of Yeovil, since then it's just gone terribly downhill. And I think Hill was right to be sacked because his record obviously speaks for itself. 3 wins in 39 matches, the worst in our history of managers. It's just terrible, really.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned I think 30-year managers or whatever. I think you said, and I actually saw a stat. I think it was it Iron Stats or something like that.
Yeah,
on Twitter.
Iron Stats. Yeah,
and every stat had them in the bottom 3 for the past 30-year managers. It's not a very good statistic. That Tom, have you got anything to add on that?
Yeah, just for I've got to shut off in 5 minutes, but before I do go, I thought. Can't remember what I predicted opening day, but I had you quite low down from the start, and I feel like I do feel sorry for you and your fan base because every side that drops down to the National League, it's a harsh reality. Is what I would say. It's a tough league.
We also expected this really to be a tough season, but I don't think anyone expected it to be this bad so far. Like to just lose games in utterly ridiculous manner. We all thought we'd struggle, but to be second bottom of the league after 6 games and to only have won 1 game and to give away 3 goal leads and to lose against 10-man teams for the entirety of the match, it's beggars belief as to how bad it can get. We expect now to get beat every game we play in because the confidence isn't there and the players don't seem to be playing for the manager, for the club anymore, for the badge. It's just an absolute mess, really. And I don't know where we go from here because I know we have obviously going to get a new manager in at some point, but who can we sort of feasibly get as a new manager? We've had experience before with Keith Hill. We've had any experience with Neil Cox in the past, but every single time it's been the same conclusion. We just end up imploding and they get sacked maybe half a year later. So, and I don't think it's going to change the next appointment. I think we're going to be in the same sort of situation down in the mire where we just keep on losing games weirdly and we're just back to square one, really. I don't see any light in the tunnel, unfortunately, unless we get a new ownership, which, again, could take months or years. So for the immediate future, it's just bleak for us.
Yeah, I think the biggest one from my point of view, when I realised that you were in trouble, is actually second game against Maidenhead. I mean, there's no disrespect to Maidenhead. We played them the week before and they were not very good, and then they went 3-0 up against you in the first half, and I thought, wow, shit 3 goals. I mean, Maidenhead's a tough place to go, and they do they're well known for taking scalps off the big boys. But I mean, when you went 3-0 down at half time, I couldn't actually believe that. So.
Yeah, it was an embarrassing.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been uninspiring since then. And as you said about the Solihull one, when it was Solihull got 2 back just before half time, you sort of had a feeling that they would go on.
Oh yeah, it was inevitable. We knew that when they scored the 2 goals after they get the game, we're going to get beat now. You can just tell when at 3-0 we were actually quite in control, really. But after that second goal, we just thought, oh yeah, another half for this to come. They're going to just come out and attack us, and we're going to just implode again and we'll get beat. And obviously that happened with the 4th goal later on in the game. So it's inevitable, really. Yeah.
Have any of you players been, I know Butterfield had a good first game, but have any of your players been half decent at all? Or
Regan Ogle, I think he's quite good attacking wise. Defensively, again, a little bit suspect. Butterfield had a good game against Yeovil, but since then he's got off the ball massively. He got taken off actually at half time the other day as well against Halifax, which isn't really a good sign. Joe Nuttall's got 4 goals in 6 games, so obviously that's a good return. But he's not scored in 3 matches now, so he's on a bit of a dry spell, if you will. But apart from that, no one's really. I guess our lower knees that we've signed, Rob Apter and Isaac Fletcher.
Yeah, was it Apter number 25?
He came in as a sub later on in the game. Yeah, he looked good actually. Mm-hmm. But apart from that, there's not many positives I can take from the opening 6 matches.
Yeah, I think you just look at Scunthorpe. I know we talked earlier on and very early on in pre-season. I don't think you'd signed many players at that point. And then afterwards, I think it was when I was speaking to you, Tom, and we're doing our predictions, and I looked at the players that Scunthorpe had signed. For example, Jacob Butterfield that they'd signed. He's a big name at this level. Other players like Whitehouse, who they've also got to their disposal. And then they beat Yeovil, and I started having a feeling, hang on here, Scunthorpe are going to be, as poor as what everyone were expecting them to. I think I because I know when I was talking to you, Toby, I said I wouldn't be surprised if they got relegated just based off everything that's going off the field. But then you looked at the players at the sign. I think I'd predicted them. I think it was it 15th something. It might have been slightly lower than that. But I know it were down there. But I expected Scunthorpe to be okay this season, and it still could be. We've seen Southend have come down. They've always seemed to struggle. At Chesterfield, when they came down at first, they seemed to struggle significantly. But it just feels like this time when you look at Scunthorpe, yes, they beat Yeovil. They've got some decent players in there, in my opinion. You sort of saw after that the results that they were having and the losses, these poor losses that they were having. This is a side that potentially could go down, especially with the problems that are going off the field. I know. I'd just like to quickly mention that I was actually driving into Scunthorpe and they were like a bridge, and they were hill out, and also the chairman. And I looked at that and I thought, geez, things must be going bad off the field.
No, massively. There's a big resentment of the owner amongst fans. Obviously, there's a lot of stay away fans. I think around 1,000 fans aren't going to games anymore because of the ownership. Yeah. So that in itself is a massive story that there's no, connection between the club and the fan base for the local area. It's just in complete disarray right now. So until that's resolved, we can't feasibly progress as a club, I don't think, because it's just so toxic and just so, downbeat that there's no, camaraderie between the supporters and the club anymore. So it's just an absolute disgrace, really, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, Tom, have you finally got anything to add before you go?
No, that's it. Thanks for having me on. Oh, and I'll actually very briefly one last thing for Toby. It was just about our striker's left us now, Carl Wootton. He came from Scunthorpe, didn't he? So I just feel like he's probably laughing that this summer he's gone up a division and he did come from Scunthorpe, didn't he, Wootton?
Yeah, he's at Scunthorpe.
Yeah. I just wonder if that was like a bigger sign of like you recruit, like letting players go. I mean, he'd obviously gone on to Stockport.
The thing with Wootton is that he never really kicked on with us. He was always like a sort of periphery sort of figure. He never really got a space in the starting lineup, like for a prolonged period of time. It was quite hit and miss. So at the time when he was sold, our fans didn't really think much of it because we thought, he's not really a crucial player. We can do better than him. But since he's left us, obviously he was good with Notts. Now he's gone to Stockport. So I mean, in hindsight, obviously it's a big loss for us. But at the time, he was very, very average. He didn't really score many goals. Our fans thought, no big loss there. But obviously, the same with us. We released Matty Godwin back in the day. With us, again, he was no big loss. But obviously now he's at Coventry. So this happens often with our players. We sort of release players who are average for us and they go on and have great careers. So this is just a regular occurrence. I think that sort of embodies the club in itself. That, the club itself is that toxic that any good player can go there, perform badly, get sold to a different team, and then they can go to the Championship, for example. So I think that just embodies the club in itself right now.
Yeah, Tom, cheers for joining us tonight. It's much appreciated, and I'll continue with you in a bit. Someone else has put in the chat. Toby, I do fear for you this season. This league is unforgiving, and someone coming in needs to give you a massive change. He'll want his own players, so a big turnover of players too. Yeah, that's something that I'd also like to mention. Obviously, yes, the transfer window is closed for EFL clubs, but it also makes it a little bit harder to sign players as well from your perspective too, as it usually is. You can't just bring in a flood of players now, can you? Do you also see that as a bit of a disadvantage as well when you look at the new appointment of the manager? I think he's the under-18s coach and a bit of lack of experience, in my opinion.
Yeah, Tony Dawes will be in charge on Saturday, this sort of academy coach, In terms of recruitment, we've already got a pretty big squad. So unless we sort of get rid of some players, we can't realistically bring in that many right now because we've got a lot of players who aren't playing at all. So if we bring in players, that will just cause more disunity in the squad there. So it's very difficult because we literally, if we get any manager in anytime soon, there's no budget to get players in the first place. There's no space for them. So unless we miraculously get rid of some players, which again is very, very unlikely, we can't bring many players in. So again, it just shows how poorly the club's being run at this moment in time.
Yeah. Something else that I'd just like to ask. Do you think that the problems were Keithfield? Do you think he has to take the majority of the blame, or do you think it is a lot of it has to go on the owner? Obviously, both, probably in your opinion, both have to share equal blame. But do you think if Keithfield, it was a bit more of a stable club at the moment when he first came in, do you think Keith Hill could have been a successful manager at Scunthorpe.
If we were a stable team, he'd have done well for us, I reckon. But because of the whole off-the-field issues, I mean, we could have any manager in charge. It'd be the same conclusion if you ask me. Like, every season for the past 5 years, we finished below 20th. And that in itself tells a story. But, we've got good players in the team, like Butterfield, Nuttall, Andrew Boyce, George Taft. These players have played in the Championship, for example. Liam Feeney as well.
He did well when he came on. I like Liam Feeney. He did well when he came on.
To be fair to him. Like, we've got players who should be at high level, and yet here we are, bottom of the National League. I don't think it's fair to pin it all on Keith Hill. Although granted, he made some very, very bizarre team selections and players in some unorthodox positions over the past few months, but to pin it all on him would be unfair if you ask me. But I think, again, anyone that comes in as manager at Scunthorpe is going to have a massively tough task to try and sort of, I guess, steady the ship in the first place, because the club's in disarray. The money's not there anymore either. I just don't see anyone coming in and succeeding until the owner leaves. But again, that could be months, if not years. So for the immediate future, I just don't see how this is going to be resolved, really.
Yeah, I think the question for me is who would want, and I'm not being disrespectful here to you, but who would want to actually go to Scunthorpe? You're going into a hostile atmosphere, I sort of could feel that in the ground. Before the game, you had Io Silverlining on, the announcement guy would, he seemed quite positive and upbeat for the current situation. And as soon as that first goal went in, and I think we probably were just slightly dominating at that point when we scored. You could just feel after that, just the drop in the atmosphere. It was hostile. And, we were putting a lot of pressure on then towards the end of the first half. And, if you're a manager and you're thinking, Scunthorpe, there's a job there for me, why would you want to go in? You've got an owner who doesn't really care much about the club, which it seems it doesn't. You've got a bunch of players that are low on confidence. There's a lot of rumours about the future of the club as Scunthorpe United just being a club. Why would you want to go to Scunthorpe United? And I think that's the question for me.
Yeah, no, I agree fully. I mean, any sort of decent manager would just think, no, I don't want to go there because I'll ruin my CV. Like Keith Hill before, who was a good manager at Rochdale, he was incredible there. He did okay at trying to go into the playoffs in League Two. He came to Scunthorpe and that was it. It's his worst ever managerial spell ever. I just don't think any half-decent manager would want to come in. All we can do is perhaps get someone, I guess, untried from the lower leagues, maybe National League North manager or something. But even then, will they want to
That's a huge risk, yeah.
Exactly. And will they want to sacrifice their, I guess, projects in the league below to come to us when we could be going down that league next year?
Yeah.
I just don't know. I don't know who we're going to appoint. I mean, I personally think that we'll give it to Tony Dawes on a sort of permanent basis after a few games. That's what I think could be the sort of the cheap option, but I think it sort of would make sense right now. Because I don't think there'll be that many applicants for the job, unfortunately, because of the situation that we find ourselves in. And if I was a manager, I wouldn't come anywhere near the club. It's just so toxic and bad, really. Yeah.
Yeah, it did generally just feel like that on Saturday. The only positive thing I can say, you're not getting battered. These aren't particularly a game where you're being battered. You're losing by 1 or 2 goals. I think it just shows the sort of position that you're in, where you're 3-0 up against Solihull Moors, who are a strong side at this level with the calibre of players they've got, and then they come back and win 4-3. That's something that you very rarely see. An old Scunthorpe United, in a bit more stable position, would you bottle it from being 3-0 up? In my opinion, I don't think so. Losing to Bromley when they're down to 10 men, it's just not good at this moment in time. And I think the only thing I can say about losing to Halifax, I don't think on paper, and I don't want to back my words here, we were the worst team in the league at that position. I think we were in a false position based off results, and I don't think it's that bad to lose to Halifax. And that's just in my opinion. I might be building my own side up.
No, and I agree fully with that. Yeah, I thought you weren't actually a bad team. I thought that you were in a bit of a false position myself as well, actually. I think that the likes of Yeovil were far worse than you guys were.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I think you'll be fine this year. I think it'll be sort of maybe a mid-table season, but you'll be nowhere near relegation if you were to ask me right now, because I was fairly impressed by Halifax on Monday. So I think he'll be okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think a bit more of a negative note on Scunthorpe's point of view. But I look at the upcoming games though. Bournemouth Wood at home. That's a tough one, For me, who's Halifax has been in this league for a long time now. We went through all the same problems that Scunthorpe are going through now a long time ago. But Bournemouth are a side in this league. You know, they're just a tough side to play. You know, they're a bit of a bogey side for us when we always play them. You know, they scrap out results. I could see you losing that like 1-0. It would be something like that against Bournemouth. Eastleigh away, you know, it's a bit of a banana skin sort of game because of how Eastleigh are doing it this moment in time. Alty away, York City at home. You know, the list goes on, and it's just so many tough games, in my opinion, for Scunthorpe.
I think every game's a tough game, really, in this league. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it certainly is, and especially when you're in the position that you are in at this moment in time. Someone's come in the chat and said, Thomas Maris has said, do you know what's happened to the young lad Finn Shrimpton at Scunthorpe? Played a few early, I think. Thought he was a great at Clee last year.
That's a good question. Yeah, because he's one of our young players. He turned 20 actually the other week. He's not played a minute this season. I have no idea either because he was playing fairly often actually for the end of last season, but he's not been picked once. So I think maybe with a new manager, he might get a look in. But he was one of our, I guess, brighter prospects, shall we say, as well. And he's been just frozen out completely by Keith Hill. So maybe under a new manager, he might get some game time. But yeah, I have no idea where Shrimpton is. I don't know if he's perhaps injured, but there's been no mention of that. So I think it's just been Keith Hill just not playing him. So again, it just shows the disarray of the club. You know, we've got sort of bright young players who aren't playing. You know, if they can't play during our worst spell for ages, then what chance have they got at all of playing?
Yeah.
Like, if they're not going to play them now, when will they get played? I mean, the current players obviously aren't playing well enough to warrant getting a 13 spot. So why not give the likes of Shrimpton a chance, really? So, yeah, great question, but I couldn't tell you because no one really knows where he is right now.
Yeah, I do look at Scunthorpe on paper, and I said this at the start of the season. I look at the calibre of players in the squad. They should be pushing, I think, the top half of the National League. Do you agree with that, or do you think that I'm overestimating them there? Or do you think it's just generally just all about the ownership and the management? Do you think that's why these players are underperforming?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on paper, as you say, we've got a really decent squad for this level. You know, we should be in the top half, I agree. I think if there was no sort of ownership turmoil with a half-decent manager in charge, we would be top half, definitely. But I think when the club is just like this, we can't perform to the best of our abilities for whatever reason that is. Like, I'd love to know what goes on behind the scenes because it just, the stuff that we get, obviously, we get little snippets here and there from what goes on, but for it to be this catastrophic, you know, this has got to be some sort of just massive just incompetence from top to bottom, really. I mean, looking at our starting 11, you know, we have some of the better players in this league, without a doubt, you know, but they're just not performing for whatever reason that is. So it all boils down to the ownership, really. Yeah, and until that is resolved, it's just going to be more of the same, unfortunately.
Yeah, finally then, Toby, before I do let you go, do you think Scunthorpe, and it's quite a hard question to say at this moment in time, do you think Scunthorpe will get relegated, or do you think you'll find your way back and you'll be able to survive the National League?
I think there will be 4 worse teams than us end of the season, but I don't expect it to be a comfortable survival for us. I think that we'll be sort of in and around the relegation zone, but I think we'll gradually pull away a little bit towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll go down. I mean, again, that could bite me in about 9 months' time. But I personally think we've got enough to survive. But it's I don't think we're not going to go on some sort of barnstorming run from now until May where we sort of go for the playoffs. So that's not going to happen.
It's just about I know it's hard to say, but it's just about stabilising. I know you can't really do that at the most moment in time, but Southend was similar last season. Someone's coming about Southend. I will answer that in a second, but they struggled when they first came down. Like I've mentioned, Chesterfield did. They all seem to struggle. And there's always that thought, we might go down again. I don't think Scunthorpe will go down again. I think they'll come to grasps with the National League in the upcoming months, potentially. But I don't think it'll be a comfortable season by any means. But yeah, Toby, I do really appreciate you coming on tonight to talk about Scunthorpe, and hopefully things do improve in the upcoming weeks.
No, thank you for having me. Cheers, I do appreciate it. Cheers, Luke. Thank you. Cheers.
So we're also going to be joined by a Wealdstone fan to talk about the success of their start to the season, sort of the secret behind their success, because I don't think many people expected Wealdstone to have such a good start to the season. Paul, thank you for coming on tonight's edition of the podcast. thank you as well for defeating Halifax. It's much appreciated. We needed that win at all as an all after the draw to Southend. Before we do talk a lot about Wealdstone and the success and how they're doing in formation and stuff. Sorry for keeping you waiting, but also
no problem.
Talk us a bit about that game because, well, I wasn't there. I was in Mallorca hoping for a win.
If I'm brutally honest, Luke, I think we were very surprised at how poor Halifax were, having obviously experienced them both home and away in the last 2 years, and you having that run into the playoffs. We didn't expect the Halifax of last year with the fact that you lost your manager and a couple of your key players, but it was a really comfortable win. And I know we've had a really good start, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but I'd have to say it's probably one of the poorest National League teams I've seen down at the Vale in the last 3 years. And we were really surprised because, what we always came to expect from Halifax was something really big, well-organised, drilled, almost built like rugby league players, tough. And we just didn't see it. They were toothless. They didn't look like they were ever going to score. Mm-hmm. I know that up to that point you hadn't scored a goal in the league, and you just didn't look like you're going to score. And we've kept clean sheets and we've done well as a team, and I think we've got the best defensive record in the league, if not sharing it with some others. But we just didn't look like we were going to concede a goal, and Halifax were really poor, and you could tell that they were short of confidence, really short of confidence. And in that change and that flux of having, I suppose, the continuity of the new manager, but having the new players, and you'll appreciate them more than anyone. I'm watching them week in, week out. But they weren't particularly good, if I'm brutally honest, Luke. And unfortunately, we got them at a good time because in weeks to come they may improve, and getting your first win on Monday would have helped you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What were your thoughts on our manager blaming it on your pitch? I'm not saying anything wrong about Wealdstone because our pitch is in an absolute state at the moment.
No.
At this moment in time. But what were your thoughts on that? Like, even Halifax fans are saying, "What are you talking about? We've started the season so poor. It's nothing to do with the pitch."
It certainly smacks as a bit of sort of job preservation, doesn't it? Sort of blaming everyone but yourself. Our pitch is remarkable for the fact of it's a part-time operation. We do have a groundsman who's brilliant, and he gets it looking superb. And I think you'll find that Stu and Matt, our management team, will probably say the same. It is a little bit dry. It's natural. We haven't had much rain. It doesn't have a superb all singing, all dancing sprinkler system. We have volunteers that go out and put hoses onto it and move them around during the day. So if anything, it's a little bit dry. And if those that know what Wealdstone are like, they play front foot attacking football, and sometimes the pitch isn't helpful to us either. We go to the big grounds, the Notts Counties and the Chesterfields, and Oldham the other night, and we zip the ball around because there's a little bit more to the pitch. Mm-hmm. The pitch is in fantastic condition. It's a brilliant pitch for what we have, and I do think your manager was clutching at straws quite considerably that afternoon. And as I say, it's the same for both teams, and we seem to deal with it, and they couldn't. And my point, I think I made a point on Twitter. Well, what are you going to blame your pitch at the Shea as well? Because you haven't won a game at home either. So what are you doing? Blaming them, blaming your groundsman and your pitch. So, and difficult one for him. I get it. 4 or 5 games in, not scoring a goal, not getting a win, but clutching at straws. Yeah.
Someone's come in, and I apologise for not replying to this sooner. Thoughts on Southend start to the season? I'll just clearly say inconsistent, in my opinion. Just a bit on Wealdstone. Then pre-season, you brought in a lot of good players, quite high calibre of players for Wealdstone standards. You think of them, and I'm not disrespecting here. They are part-time. They're in the National League. They are, I think, still probably small fish in a big pond because of them being in that part-time module. Did you expect Wealdstone to have such a successful start to the season?
No. And I think any realistic Wealdstone fan would say exactly the same. We had an indifferent pre-season. Like I said, there's always that expectation as a Stones fan that we're going to pick up the players that might not be that little bit higher in the National League or the Football League, or those kids that are dropping out of academies who are still trying to find a pro deal here and there. So, we always expected it to go to the last sort of days or weeks of the transfer market for us to see who we might pick up. It was amazing actually to see we lost to Chelmsford City, a National League South side, 3-0 the week before the National League started, and I wasn't there, but very indifferent performance from what I'm told, and a little bit worried. As fans were a little bit worried in relation to what was going to be served up on the next week in the National League opener, and 2 or 3 players had been brought in that didn't actually play much of the pre-season at all, and the team that started that week certainly didn't really reflect what pre-season was about, and that's not surprising. We knew our management team worked tirelessly hard throughout the academy setup and have good connections down here in London, especially to try and pick up lads out of the loan market or those that have just dropped out of the pro game. So, no one expected to see Wealdstone top of the league after 4 games or 5 games, and sort of 4th after 5 or 6 games, and have some of those bigger teams below us. So we're very fortunate at this stage to be where we are. But it's not because of any lack of hard work or anything else like that. And everything that Tom is it Tom that just spoke about Scunthorpe being wrong?
Toby.
Toby Wealdstone are doing everything right it's almost flip it on its head. Everything he talks about being toxic and wrong and substandard, it's going well for us up at the Vale.
And I think that's an important factor for a team of any size in this league. If you're a well-run club, you've got a good board, you're bringing in a good quality players, which you have done. Max Kretschmark being one of the big names that you signed, Lewis Kinsella as well. You know that you're going to do well this season. And that's something that I sort of regret when I do my predictions. And I know it's still early. A lot could still happen, couldn't it? But I actually predicted Wealdstone to get relegated, although they had signed a lot of big names like Kretschmark, like Kinsella, purely just because you were part-time. Because I thought this season, the part-time size, it will catch up to them, and this is the season where they will start to struggle. But it seems to have sort of been on the other side, and it seems that Wealdstone are sort of thriving off being part-time, bringing in, probably something that I always looked when Altrincham were part-time, and even Halifax at a point when we first rebuilt and we were part-time when we first reformed. We could always attract the best, part-time players, players who don't particularly ever want to go into the full-time module, and that's something I think Wealdstone have done well. For example, Max Kretschmark, he was full-time working, but there must be a reason for him to leave working to join Wealdstone, and that may well be because he wants to go into the sort of part-time sort of module. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but it does seem like Wealdstone this season are building a good team. They've got a spine of a team. They've got some quality players in there, and they're sort of thriving off this sort of, being part-time and having that sort of, lads in the changing room sort of like momentum. And for example, Max Kretschmark, Lewis Kinsella, all Oma, I think it is, up front as well. Sort of being the underdogs, and that's something that Wealdstone seem to be thriving off and enjoying being the underdogs at this level.
No, and we don't see ourselves as anyone other than that. What you got to appreciate though, Luke, we've now been in here 3 years. This is going into our 3rd season, and you look at Maidenhead, you look at Woking, you look at Sutton, who've gone on, maybe even Halifax rebuilding. Year on year, you get little things better. You get the small steps of staying stable within the league and improving within the league. And if you look at our recruitment from year 1 to year 3, we're now attracting National League standard players.
Yeah.
We're now attracting National League experienced players. Kretschmark, Kinsella, Howes in goal, Olu up top, who's coming from Hartlepool. We're able to attract those that have played in the National League, whereas previously we were going into the Isthmian League, the Ryman League, maybe looking at sort of future projects and that type of sort of player. And it's certainly reflecting in the team. Their resilience, the way they manage the game. I think one that goes under the radar is Sam Habajam, who came in playing in Australia for 2 years, had played in the National League and the Football League under the Cowley brothers for Lincoln as one, as an example. And players like him are helping that young squad. We've got a young squad. There's no two ways about that. The young, hungry squad who, realistically, though, some of them are playing for their futures, are playing to go up the pyramid. And like you said, we've got a nice balance where actually we've got probably the best of the semi-professional leagues. In Cook, who we got from Woking a couple of years ago, is now a club captain, superb. Absolutely. Along with Kretschmar, your Habajam, you've got Kinsella. We're very lucky to have recruited those players, but that a huge amount of respect has to go to Stu Maynard and Matty, his assistant, in terms of the due diligence and the work they put in outside of Wealdstone to go and find those lads.
Yeah, that does bring me on to the next question. How highly do you rate Stuart Maynard as a manager?
Oh, the guy's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Him and Matt, they know what they're doing. They know, we've had frustrated times where it hasn't quite worked in terms of how they want to play, but they've stuck to their principles. They work tirelessly. Bearing in mind they're part-time, they work tirelessly to find the best players they can, and they've really fostered a team spirit that like nothing else. We over the bank holiday weekend we got 4 points. We went to Gateshead away. We drew 0-0 against Yeovil. We played 134 minutes of 180 minutes with 10 men. Yeah. As a part-time team, we took 4 points and kept 2 clean sheets. We rode our luck. We earned our luck. But, to get those lads to that level of fitness and that level of ability and desire to want to win and keep clean sheets is incredible. And I genuinely think they do it because they're playing for the love of the football club. They're not generally doing this for money because they could be elsewhere. We don't pay big dough. As you say, they're part-time, but there's a real connection between the fans, the board, and the team that has really sort of built over the last 3 years. And we've been patient with Stu. Stu's been patient with us. And they're very open and transparent around what they want to do and how they're going to achieve it. And I think he's even been labelled recently as the part-time Pep. If you watch how we play, we are brilliant at playing football, technical football. We're not big, we're not strong. We got Woking on Sunday on the television. Their average height is about 6'2". We can't match that. We can't match Halifax physicality, but technically we're very, very good.
Yeah. That's key as well. And you also did mention, connection between the fans and the players. I've seen, I think it's from Stonecastle themselves, and they've been posting images online. I've seen Gateshead away, fans. I think you took about over 100 up there, didn't you? But
130, 140.
Yeah, which is quality. I will admit that. But somewhere like going to Gateshead away, getting a result there, you saw the fans and the players celebrating together. Oldham away being another example of that when you won there. It seems like there's a real connection between the fans and the players, which is something that, other clubs, even that are doing well in this league, might not have. And that's something that I'm sure you as a fan and the players will also, enjoy and take. I think that will sort of inspire them to, improve and, carry on this sort of momentum, which they are gaining week on week.
Yeah, I mean, they feed off each other. If you ever come to the Vale, if you've been, you get connection with the players. You've got no choice. It's a small ground. It's not these sterile areas where players are ushered into this stand and into this dressing room, and they've got a players bar or a players lounge or whatever it may be. They're having to come in where we are. They're having to park their cars where we park our cars. So fans get connected with the players, and they soon know what's expected of them from our point of view. And we're no different to any set of football fans, Luke. You want to go out and you want your lads to put a shift in for 90, 95 minutes, and that's what our lads do. And we're not going to win every game, but we're certainly going to give it a good go. And I think, because of that, the fans are buying into it, and we travel in our numbers, and they appreciate it. We appreciate them. And it's sort of everything's going well at the moment. We're building those small little steps towards National League security. And if we finish 4th from bottom, that will do us.
Is it so? You'd actually agree? You'd want, if let's say this season, how it's panning out at the moment, if you finish 4th from bottom, would you be happy with that?
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. You speak. I think most Wealdstone fans will be looking at this and saying we've got, 15 points towards safety rather than 15 points towards playoffs. Or you got to look at that target 40 to 45 points to stay in the National League. Last year was a little bit of a gimme. Dover were already gone before they started. There was one less space to go down anyway, so you were fighting for 2 spaces, whereas this year we're fighting for 4. You have to look at it and say, well, is there 4 worse teams? On the showing of the first 5 or 6 games, without a shadow of a doubt there are. I don't think any Wealdstone fan will sit here tonight and say we might get relegated. We might get that. I don't think they'll say we definitely will. I think we'll definitely put up a good fight. And if we finish 16th and above, which we from last year, will be unbelievable. But we just got to stay in the league, Luke. We've got to stay in the league, and we're certainly making a real fist of it in this early stages.
Is it about sort of gaining those steps, so every season improving up the places? So, for example, last season you narrowly survived relegation. You were quite stable to survive relegation. But then the following season, it's about improving on that and hopefully in the future securing a playoff place. Is that something that you want to see as a Wealdstone fan? You want to inspire to see Wealdstone get in the playoffs and maybe one day go to the Football League?
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. We're a traditional non-league football club. 30 years ago when Oldham were playing the Premier League, we're lucky that we survived. So every fan who watches Wealdstone now, be young or old, is taking advantage of us being in the National League and enjoying every minute of it. We don't want to come out of it, but there's got to be aspirations to want to be better. But that takes time. Little things like having a sponsor that pays for our away travel has come on this year. They've improved the catering for the fans around the ground. They've made a little bit more space down one side. That's just off the field. When you think about on the field, how Stu has recruited in terms of the improvement of that player and getting that connection with other National League and EFL teams. So it's just those small steps towards stability. We have one full-time employee at the football club. And he works on the non-footballing side, running the club day to day. The footballing side is all purely part-time. So, is there a desire to maybe go to that hybrid model then into full-time? Could be the next steps. Who knows? But these things get talked about regularly on our podcasts, on Stonescast podcast, etc., and through WhatsApp groups. But it's just those small steps, staying stable and building. And look at the likes of Maidenhead, Woking and Sutton, who've all been traditional non-league clubs and have done very well in the leagues over the last sort of 10, 15 years.
Harrogate as well, another example of that.
Yeah, Harrogate, yes. Yeah.
It pains me to say it being a Halifax fan, but yeah. Working then Sunday on the TV. Do you fancy yourselves for that?
We've got to. We're at home. They're fairly inconsistent. Well, they've won 3, lost 3, is it? I think so.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, you're right.
We always have good games with them. From the National League South days up to National League in the last 4 or 5 years. We've got 4 or 5 ex-players from in our squad that played for them in the recent season. So we've got to fancy ourselves. The squad's a little bit small, so we're going to lose Lewis Kinsella. He got sent off on Saturday, so we haven't got him, and we were carrying a couple of injuries anyhow. So we'll have to see how they've sort of recovered this week, I guess, to see what team is put out on Sunday. But we've got to fancy ourselves at home. Hopefully there'll be a big enough crowd there to get behind the lads and get another win and stay unbeaten.
Yeah, for you personally, then, do you think the squad is good enough to get the playoffs this season?
On this showing, the team is good enough. The starting 11 or 12. I'm not suggesting the rest of the squad aren't, but we've just got a very small squad, Luke. And I think that's what probably will hinder us in the weeks to come, because we all due respect, the likes of Scunthorpe, the likes of Halifax, Chesterfields, the big clubs can go and strengthen. They've got probably a little bit of cash to throw around. They've got that full-time model they can offer to young pros. So there's no doubt that Stu and Matt are going to be working really hard to try and get players in on a constant basis if we need them. But I think that's where our real worries is that the squad they carry is very small. The ability of them are all very similar. One drops in, one drops out, and they could do well. But I think it's going to be difficult having such a small squad.
Yeah. Paul, I really do appreciate you coming on tonight to talk about
thank you for my time.
Stones. Thank you to our other guests as well, Tom and Toby, who have left the stream. Thank you to everyone that has also tuned in to tonight's edition of the podcast. Please remember to drop us a like and subscribe if you do enjoy the podcasts on a regular basis. If you are a National League fan, this is the right podcast for you. Once again, Paul, really, really good to chat to you about Wealdstone. And once again, thank you to everyone that's tuned into tonight's edition. We'll be back next week with another edition of the podcast. So stay tuned for that. There'll be more news on that in the upcoming days. And I will see you all next time. Bye for now.